for their career. So, welcome Dr. Agarwal to the discussion and thanks for sparing time.
Thank you, Abhay. So nice to talk to you.
So, sir, I have very basic fundamental question to start with because large number of our viewers may not be aware of what NBA is. So, can you tell us what NBA is and why accreditation is necessary for the institutions which are already approved of by UGC or AICTE?
Abhay, see, when institutions are approved by UGC or AICTE, many a times they are greenfield institutions. They are just starting. So we give approval in anticipation of the effects of quality. Accreditation is a process which we take up after 2 batches of students have already graduated. So that means the systems are stabilized and we are now trying to measure the quality of the institution after the systems are stabilized. And therefore, it is now believed very strongly that as the quality of higher education is a very important factor in the progress of an in a nation, and therefore accreditation now has become all the more important because after the institutions have been in existence for 5-6 years, we expect from them to perform.
So, sir, what is the fundamental difference between NBA accreditation in terms of norms vis-a-vis when UGC or AICTE gives approval to the institutions?
Yeah, say for example, AICTE approval will depend upon input parameters, how much faculty, how much area and all that. AICTE approval process cannot really capture teaching learning process and the output thereof. NBA today is a completely outcome-based process. We really believe, particularly after we became members of the Washington Accord, that NBA should be concerned with outcome-based education. We want an engineer to possess these parameters. AICTE tries to ensure that if these input parameters are taken care of, it should happen. Does it really happen? That's the basic difference, that we in NBA are concerned with more than the input parameter.
And sir, how this is going to affect career of students and faculty?
Because now the world at large and to a good extent even Indian stakeholders have become aware of the quality and are conscious of the quality. I had not seen 20 years ago parents and students going around 25 institutions before deciding to where to take admission. But today they do that. And therefore, they are very quality conscious. So the simple advertisements or wrong facts may not impress them. So they really want to ensure the quality. And NBA has been given this responsibility to ensure the quality. And therefore, our website will clearly give all stakeholders the programs which we have accredited and for how long. And Abhay, as you know, we are members of Washington Accord, which is a consortium of sort of 21 countries, which includes USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia, etc., etc. And therefore, we are duty bound to ensure that the graduate attributes which have been agreed to in a consortium of all these 21 countries are ensured in our accredited institutions also. So therefore, if a program in an institution is accredited by NBA, then every stakeholder is more or less ensured that those essential graduate attributes are imbibed in the graduates of this institution. And now, because of the Washington Accord, the same is acceptable to all 21 countries for employment.
So if I understand correctly, whether you want to say that because of this Washington Accord, if a student in India is graduating from an NBA accredited institute, then he will have more value in these countries, and students who has not graduated from an accredited institute will not be perceived of that quality or that standard in these countries?
Oh, Abhay, you are perfectly right. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's more than that. The countries outside believe, because we do not know the perceived quality or the standards of all institutions in other countries, therefore the common denominator has come out to be the accreditation. We have seen in last couple of years the graduates from even good institutions which were not accredited, they were thrown out by the countries from employment, because they said, how we have no mechanism to ensure that. So our common denominator is, if you are graduated from an accredited institution, for us you are okay. And the understanding is that as far as employment and placement in any country is concerned, because you meet the same graduate attributes, you should be acceptable. We have seen in last couple of years, particularly in South Asian countries and all that, many students, many graduates who were there even for quite some time were asked either to produce a certificate that their institution is accredited or leave the country. So it's leading to a bit of serious repercussion at the international level, because they believe, having 4,000 colleges in India, how do we know which one is good? So accreditation is the only norm by which we can go.
So, sir, what percentage of institutes are currently accredited, and what is the roadmap for non-accredited institutions?
Let me be frank on this. It's a little not a very healthy picture. At the moment, we have accredited only about 15% of the programs in the country, not more than that. Now, the question arises why? First of all, as I told you, we are supposed to follow the standards of our 21 countries. So we have to maintain the standards. We can't dilute the standards. And there's no intention to dilute the standards, because accreditation is the final quality stamping which we are giving to the institution after AICTE approval and all that. And if we dilute that final standard also, things are bad. So we don't want to do that. The problem with the institutions is that they do not meet even the minimum essential requirements. For example, when AICTE started giving approvals, they were concerned only with the, say, teacher-student ratio. It should be 15 or 20 or something like that. But when we came, we said, okay, teacher-student ratio is fine, but at least 20% of your faculty must be PhD. Now, this became an additional parameter which AICTE did not have. Now, many of the institutions do not have even 20% or even 10% of the PhD faculty, and that we believe is not conducive to quality. Similarly, placements, and where are the placements? Where are the students going for internship and things like that? Because AICTE devises, and then it is for the institutions to follow it up. Accreditation is supposed to really make a final check. Have they followed up what AICTE said? And therefore, there's a gap. And as you know, in Washington Accord, because the number of colleges were too many, and one typical problem which India has is bulk of our colleges are still affiliated colleges. Their issue was, sir, you want us to be outcome-based. If our university is not outcome-based, what the hell can we do? Because we are an affiliated college. We can't devise the things for ourselves. So therefore, we divided the total institutions in the country into two parts: tier 1 institutions, which have a control over their syllabus and curriculum, and tier 2 institutions, which practically have to follow the university. So we set the standards slightly different for tier 1 and tier 2. From tier 1 institutions, we expect more creativity, more innovativeness, more experimentation for the flexibility to the students. For tier 2, we expect limited, but we still want them. Why can't do something beyond the syllabus? Why can't, if the final question paper is set by the university, why the internal tests cannot measure creativity and innovation to some extent? So that is how we have tried to discriminate between tier 1 and tier 2 institution. As far as Washington Accord is concerned, at the moment they cover only our tier 1 institutions, which are just about 10 to 15% in the country, which means all universities, all CFTIs like IITs, NITs, and all autonomous colleges. So Washington Accord considers only those, and therefore we genuinely ask how many PhDs you have. So we expect about 30% PhD in tier 1 institutions for 6 years accreditation. We also give accreditation for 3 years and for 6 years. If you conform to higher standards, you get it for 6 years in one go. So these are the things which the institutions themselves are not confident of applying. Our rejection rate is not very high. Our acceptance rate is close to 90%. Rejection rate is just about 10%. But the point is, all the parameters being on the website, institutions themselves know that they are not worthy of accreditation. So our real national problem is how to make the institutions worthy of accreditation and making them confident to apply for accreditation.
So, sir, large number of institutions also complain that this NBA accreditation process is extremely expensive kind of process. It is very intensive in terms of investment. So, would you like to throw some light on these aspects?
No, I don't think that's what I'm saying. For example, not to expect even 20% faculty to be PhD today will not be very healthy. For example, another parameter we have is that you must have admission at least able to attract 40% or 50% of the students for admission. Again, our faith is if the society does not perceive you to be worthy of admission into the college, then what the hell do I go for accreditation? So we are being very practical. We are trying to reduce these things to some extent where the situation so warrants. But then the AICT also, as you know, has given them great flexibility to reduce their sanction intakes.
Yes.
Reduce their sanction and then they have 50% of the intake admission. So the parameters of placement, parameters of internship, parameters of innovativeness, parameters of projects, all these will have to be considered. We have devised a scheme of what we call as pre-qualifiers. Earlier, what used to happen was that the institutions used to apply, our team used to go and then find that there's nothing. For example, I myself know the case of accrediting 3 PG programs in a college, in an engineering college, and when the team goes, not a single PhD in the institution. Now, if there is not a single PhD faculty in the institution, how the hell are we giving accreditation to PG programs? And therefore, we devise pre-qualifiers so that on a summary sheet, the basic parameters can be tested on the screen itself, and the computer tells you whether you are eligible to apply further or not. So these pre-qualifiers are how many teachers you have against how many students. How many are PhD? What is your admission intake? What is your percentage of placement? And so these 5, 6, 7 parameters are tested online and computer tells you whether you can proceed further or not. So this was done to save their time, to save our time, and to save their money, because this process is done only at about 10% of the cost of accreditation, which earlier they used to pay 100% and then get rejected.
So, sir, if I understand the gist of what you are trying to say here, is that 15% of the institutes, of our institutes are accredited. It means 85% of our institutes are not accredited. So, whether I should imply that students who are currently studying in these 85% institutions, their future might be in danger if these institutes or if their courses don't get accredited soon?
Yeah, it could be true. That is why AICT has given them a guideline up to 2022 that they must get accreditation. If not all the programs, at least half. Because the philosophy is that at least you get into the slots of accreditation. There was another difficulty which our institutions were facing. Our fees for accreditation for the first program was quite high. I have reduced it. We have reduced it to uniformly all, so that even if you are confident of one program, go in for it. Get into the habit of accreditation. Have a taste of how does the accreditation team work, and maybe you are able to do better. So, but if the institutions are finally not able to accredit themselves accredited, then there is something seriously wrong about the quality, and you being quite obsessed blessed with creativity and innovation, I think would agree technical education devoid of minimum norms of quality will be more dangerous than more helpful to the country.
So, sir, when an institute applies for accreditation, and if it actually fulfills all the parameters, whether it gets accreditation which is backdated, so the students who were studying earlier will also get benefited, or they get that accreditation from on the date of application, sir?
No, they don't get it from backdate, because we really do not know what was the faculty ratio on the backdate, what was the faculty qualifications. They get it from the session from which they apply, but they get it for 3 years or 6 years, depending upon their quality. And then the next cycle will start only after 3 years or 6 years. Backdate is obviously not possible, because what were the laboratory standards, what were the equipment, what was the faculty is not known. And now also when we give from a session, we try to look to 2 previous sessions also, because we just want to make sure that it is not that you have enrolled the faculty only to get accreditation. So we see the performance for last 2 years also to give accreditation from this year onwards.
Sir, currently there are other agencies also in India which are in business of accreditation. Okay, sir. Sometime ISO also talks about accreditation. NAC also talks about accreditation. So, sir, how NBA is different from these organizations?
First of all, ISO does not give any accreditation as far as higher education is concerned. They give accreditation for laboratories or some ITI courses and things like that. As far as NAC is concerned, yes, they are an authorized accreditors. The difference between NAC and NBA is, number one, NAC looks at the institution as a NBA by philosophy looks at the program. In the whole world, the process of accreditation today is defined by programs. Because in the world over, we have seen there are universities which are best in computer science, but not that good in civil engineering. So therefore, program-wise. Second thing is NBA is specialized for accreditation only for AICTE approved programs. That is engineering, management, pharmacy, architecture, etc. We do not look at other programs. That is one. Third major difference is because NBA being a member of the Washington Accord, as a consortium of 21 countries, our engineers, if they are from an NBA accredited institution, then only they can get advantage of equivalence in other 21 countries for placement, which will not happen in the case of other agencies. And therefore, particularly as far as technical programs are concerned, NBA accreditation is giving them the best of situation, best of confidence level. What I'm trying to say, Abhay, is yes, very small number of institutions are accredited at the moment, and all of us do realize that the need of the hour is to make more and more institutions capable of accreditation. And therefore, a lot of effort towards mentoring of the institutions is presently on the way. AICTE, UGC, NBA, all of us are trying that we mentor the institutions so that they become capable of accreditation, because that is in their interest, that is in the interest of all stakeholders. And therefore, according to me, the greater need at the moment is strengthening the mentoring system at all levels, because the volume of the job which we have to do, keeping in view so many colleges, is tremendous, but we have to take it up. That is the only method to take the institutions forward towards accreditation.
So, sir, in new education policy, there is huge emphasis on accreditation, sir. And as you rightly said, that there are large number of institutes which we really need to accreditate. So, whether there is any plan of decentralizing this accreditation process, sir?
No, decentralization, the accreditation process will mean what? As a matter of fact, mentorship is already different than accreditation. Decentralization of accreditation, because the volume of accreditation at the moment is not that high. there is no pending application either with NBA or with NAC. So if there is no pending work, then decentralization will not have much of an impact now. If we are able to mentor many institutions and 80% of them apply for accreditation, then there may be a question of having more accrediting agencies at that point of time. That's what I feel, because we must first create enough job for accreditation agencies.
So, sir, let's close down on this hopeful, positive note, sir. We soon hope that more than 50% of the institutions in India will apply for accreditation and will give you enough work and will keep NBA busy, so that our educational systems or our standard of education could be one of the best in the world, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Toke.